Final Destination 5, a 2011 American supernatural horror film directed by Stephen Quayle and written by Eric Heisserer. It is the 5th installment in the Final Destination film series, and it's also a prequel to the first film, believe it or not. This is currently the final installment in the Final Destination world. However, fans are eager for a 6th installment. So while we keep waiting for a 6th movie, let's take a look back at 10 moments from Final Destination 5. Number 10, The Premonition. As usual, the Final Destination films always begin with one main character having a very scary premonition, and in this movie it's main character Sam, who has a vision that the bridge that they are driving over is going to collapse, killing them all. It all begins while their bus is on the bridge, stuck in a traffic jam. Sam cuts his finger on a pin sticking out of the seat in front of him. He then starts to feel like something is very wrong. Before you know it, cracks start to appear all down the bridge and it all starts to break and fall apart. Sam and his friends get off the bus and they try to make a run for it, but the bridge starts to collapse all around them and it's too late. There are some proper hair-raising moments in this scene, especially if you're not a fan of heights. At one point, characters Molly and Olivia have to balance across a piece of metal to get to the other side of the bridge, and it's quite stomach-churning. All of Sam's friends die one by one in the premonition, and just as Sam is sliced in half, he comes back to reality after having his premonition. He then tells everyone that they need to get off this bus, and they all think that he is being crazy, but then the cracks in the bridge start to appear and everyone makes a run for it, and they manage to get off the bridge just in the nick of time to see the whole thing collapse. Number 9, Gym Horror. One thing that I love about Final Destination 5 is just how gory some of the death scenes are in this movie. This next entry in our spot is one of them. Character Candice is doing some gym practice while boyfriend Peter watches on. A chain of events start happening, where a nail falls from a broken ceiling fan. We have some broken electric cables with water running down, causing a serious health hazard. You know the score, guys, just the usual things that we see on each and every Final Destination movie. It keeps you guessing on how Candice is about to die. However, when one of Candice's teammates ends up stamping on the loose nail, she falls over and knocks over a load of dust into a floor fan, which then blows into Candice's face, while she is currently spinning on some bars, which causes her to let go mid-spin, and she literally ends up flying through the air and lands on the ground in a very awkward position, completely breaking her spine and her leg, and it's just really gross. She pretty much ends up mangled and it's brutal. Her finger even twitches while her whole body is mangled on the ground, and it just sends chills down my spine whenever I see this scene. Number 8, Isaac's death scene. Now, Isaac is one of those sleazeball characters that you get in a lot of movies. He ends up stealing some tickets from a dead person's desk in work for a spa session. When he goes to the session, Isaac is under the impression that he is going to be having some sort of massage with a happy ending. However, he ends up having an acupuncture session with a much older and grand woman. She ends up putting the needles all over Isaac's body. She then tells him that it's time for sleepy buys, and she dims the lights and leaves Isaac alone. All of a sudden, a small fire breaks out in the corner of the room, but Isaac is kind of stuck in this position with all these needles in his body. He can't exactly just get up and run for help. He ends up falling off his bed and toppling headfirst down onto the floor, and all of the spikes go straight into his body, which does look super painful. He manages to get up, but he's in a lot of pain, and then a small explosion sends him flying backwards into the wall. At this point, he thinks that he's going to be okay, but then all of a sudden, a shelf that's just above him falls down, with a very heavy Buddha ornament landing on his head, which literally crushes and bursts his head open, like his head literally explodes. Number 7, the eyeball scene. Look away now if you do not like eyeballs. Olivia takes the plunge to get herself some laser eye surgery, but of course it all goes wrong. While Olivia is strapped to the chair with some sort of medical vice keeping her right eye open, the doctor realizes that he doesn't have all of Olivia's complete file, and he ends up leaving Olivia alone in the room while he goes back to reception to get it. Now, I'm not being funny, but what the hell? Even Olivia is like, wait a minute, you're leaving me? And he just carries on walking off and just leaves her there. So while Olivia is alone and strapped in, the laser machine starts to malfunction and it turns the level all the way up, and then starts to shoot its powerful laser beam into Olivia's eye, causing it to burn right through. Even when Olivia puts her hands up to try and stop the laser beam, it just burns through her skin. She manages to eventually rip herself out of the contraption before tripping over something and plunging straight out of the hospital window to her death. When she hits the floor, her eyeball somehow pops out and rolls across the road, and then the eyeball ends up getting run over by a car. It's absolutely gross, but it's also quite hilarious at the same time. Number 6, Roy takes a plunge. New manager Nathan hasn't been too popular with one of his staff members, Roy, which we see early on in the movie. For some reason, Roy does not like his new manager, and the two of them get embroiled in a heated argument which turns deadly. After Roy writes a nasty little message on his work time card, Nathan calls Roy up to the control room for a chat. Roy tells Nathan that he's really pissed off because he cut his hours, but Nathan notices some of the machinery above them is starting to malfunction. When Nathan tries to get Roy to listen to him, telling him that they have to move, Roy just ignores him and continues to rant and rave. All of a sudden, a piece of the machinery falls apart and falls down when Nathan pushes Roy away and into the path of the machinery. This machinery then takes out the floor that Roy is standing on, causing Roy to fall and land on a metal hook, which is a pretty brutal death scene. Like, the hook literally goes up through his head. It's brutal, but it's bloody awesome. Number 5, Dennis's death scene. Straight after Roy's death, all of the staff members come running up to see what's happened. Peter then asks Nathan if he actually put Roy into death's path when he saw it coming, and Nathan ends up admitting yes he did, thinking that if he did that then death will skip him. Sam then tells everyone that people are dying in the same order if they had died on the bridge, and Molly then asks him who's next. Dennis then arrives on the scene, and then all of a sudden a massive spanner gets caught in a spinning piece of machinery and comes flying over into Dennis's head, killing him instantly. And this also confirms to the group of friends that the theory of putting someone else into the path of death does skip the person. Number 4, Peter nearly kills an innocent person. Okay, so after the friends learn about killing someone to save themselves, Peter almost does just that. While Sam and Molly are having a romantic meal at a restaurant after hours, Peter knocks on the door and comes in, and he's looking a little bit worse for wear. And when he's asked if he's okay, he tells Sam and Molly that he came very close to killing an innocent person to save himself. While a woman is waiting to cross a road, Peter goes up behind the woman and he gets ready to push her into the path of a truck. But he ends up having second thoughts. Instead, Peter has a sinister plan to kill Molly to save himself. Now, I never really understood why he wanted to kill Molly. I know he was a little bit messed up after watching his girlfriend Candice die in front of him, but I never really understood why he took it out on Molly and Sam. Number 3, fight to the death. This now brings us nicely onto our next spot. So Peter pulls out a gun to try and kill Molly, but Molly and Sam make a run for it to the back of the restaurant where they hide. Peter then plays a little game of cat and mouse, and then the main detective in the movie comes in to investigate, but Peter ends up shooting and killing him. Sam then jumps out and tackles Peter, and the pair of them end up in a huge fight. Like, they literally really both end up going at it. Peter tries to push Sam into a load of hot fat, and then next minute they're on the ground before Peter knocks Sam out. Peter then goes looking for Molly, and when he has her cornered, it looks like that Molly's time is up, but then all of a sudden, Sam stabs Peter with a huge meat spit. Like, he literally plunges this thing right through Peter's body, killing him instantly. So, with Peter killing the detective and with Sam killing Peter, death has now skipped the last of his survivors, at least for now. Number 2, plane crash twist. One of the best bits of the movie now, and we jump 2 weeks later, where Sam and Molly are boarding a plane to Paris. While Sam is putting some luggage in the overhead, all of a sudden they hear some commotion. It's at this point we see characters from the original Final Destination film being pulled apart from having a fight, and it's characters Alex and Carter. It's the exact same scene that we see in the first movie. It's just very cleverly edited in. Sam then looks down at his plane ticket and it has the date and the year is 2000. Of course, we know exactly what's going to happen with this plane. So as the plane takes off, Sam overhears one of the other passengers asking the stewardess what was happening with those boys earlier on. And the stewardess says that the kid had a panic attack and wanted to get off the plane after having some sort of vision. The penny then finally drops for Sam, but it's too late. The plane's engine starts to burst into flames. Sam and Molly look at each other, but literally there's nothing they can do at this stage. The plane starts to break apart and passengers start to fly out, and the plane eventually completely bursts into flames, killing Molly, Sam, and all of the passengers on board. It's quite a brilliant twist, and I didn't see it coming when I first saw the movie. Even though there were loads of conversations about Paris throughout the film, I did not see this twist coming. Before we get to number 1, please don't forget to hit that subscribe button. We currently upload new videos every week and we are really looking to grow this channel, so make sure to hit that notification bell as well. Number 1, Nathan's death. Even though the plane has crashed and pretty much everyone is dead at this point in the movie, we still have time to squeeze in one final death scene. So immediately after the plane explosion, we cut to Nathan, who is currently in a pub at a memorial wake for Roy, who was killed earlier on in the movie. One of Roy's workmates comes over to speak to Nathan and tells him that maybe Roy dying as quickly as he did was for the best. And when Nathan quizzes him why is this, it's at this point that we learn that Roy had a huge blood vessel on his brain that was found in his autopsy, and it was going to burst at any moment. Nathan's face then drops, and before he even has a chance to react, a piece of the fire burning plane comes crashing into the pub, which kills Nathan instantly. And that was 10 moments from Final Destination 5. So guys, what did you think of this movie? Are you a fan of this movie, or did you think it was a bit bland? For me personally, I like all of the Final Destination movies. I do think, however, that this one is probably the weaker out of the 5, but I still really enjoy it. But let me know what you think, and let me know if you'd like to see a Final Destination 6 in the comments box below. Okay guys, well, thank you all for watching. Make sure you smash that subscribe button, stay safe, and I'll see you all again very soon.